Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Studio 78 podcast. I am your host, Nache from NacheSnow.com. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, folks. So today I have on Amanda Reid from Amanda Reid Designs, and she is a calligrapher. And she also does lettering, and I love her story. I love that she also created a group called Calligraphers of Color, which she talks about a little bit. And then towards the end of the episode, we get into her workshops because she was doing, of course, in person workshops last year and had to switch to virtual. And that's really doing well for her right now. So we're going to go and we're going to dive into all the things. So even if you're not a calligrapher, I think you'll still like this episode because not only is her story inspiring, but we also get into pricing and marketing. And she is also a physical therapist part-time. So we talk about how she balances that. So definitely some nuggets in here for everyone, even if you're not into calligraphy. All right. Know that this was going to be the season finale, but I decided to actually call Monique and ask her to come back on for another goal setting episode like we did last year because that was one of my most listened to episodes. So I think you guys really just want to hear how we're setting our goals, what worked well for us, what didn't work well. So I figured it made sense after looking at the metrics that I should have another one of those episodes. So I'm going to actually end the season next week talking to her about all the things. So I hope you guys are looking forward to that. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening in order to make sure you get notified about the episode since you're listening right now already. And of course, if you love this episode, which I know you guys will, I know you all will, with Amanda, please share. Remember, sharing is caring, my friends. Okay, so just a few housekeeping things, and then I'm just going to jump right in here. I already mentioned, please rate the podcast 5 stars or give it a thumbs up if you're on YouTube, wherever you're listening. Please subscribe. The show notes for this page are at NacheSnow.com/122. And if you want to support the podcast, please go over to NacheSnow.com and hit shop, and it'll take you to this magical website called Dreams, Plans, Ideas. There you will find all things productivity, but I also have some fun stuff over there too, like t-shirts. So definitely check it out. I think you all will find some good productivity products, but also the t-shirts are great too. So if you want to support the podcast or yourself, please go over and check it out. Let's see. I think that's all I have for housekeeping right now. And I am just going to jump right into this episode. Let's do this, folks. Hello, Amanda. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Your work is absolutely gorgeous. I got into calligraphy years ago, so I stalk a lot of calligraphers, and you are one of them. And I've
Okay.
had you on my Excel sheet as like need to interview. So I'm glad that we were able to
Oh,
connect.
the pressure is on now.
So, before we get into like how you started this business, can you tell the listeners just a little bit about you before Amanda Reid Design?
Yeah, my name is Amanda. I'm the owner of Amanda Reid Designs, where I mostly do modern calligraphy and teach workshops. But before I started Amanda Reid Designs, and I guess even still now, I'm also a physical therapist. So I treat patients in the hospital and outpatient clinic setting. I learned calligraphy while I was still in grad school, in physical therapy school, because well, one, I was getting married soon, and so I wanted to be able to make my own signs and do my own lettering for the wedding. So I was like, well, I got to take a workshop. So I took one workshop, and it was like in the evening after class, and I was hooked. I took one class from this one instructor in the Austin area in Texas, and I probably took all of her classes throughout my school process because I just fell in love with it. It was so relaxing. I graduated from physical therapy school, started working for about 6 months at a clinic that just like worked me like a dog. I was stressed out. I had just got married. I was taking work home every day. And then, so it was not ideal. So I quit that job, went part time with calligraphy, and then started Amanda Reid Designs. And we're here now.
Wow. So I was going to ask if you still did the physical therapy during the day or if you just decided to do this for the most part full time. So did you just quit
Yeah,
that
yeah.
job, but then start the calligraphy, but still did some physical therapy on the side?
Yeah, so I work, we call it PRN, which is means as needed. So if someone is out or they're on vacation or they just need extra help at the hospital, then I'll get called in to assist. So I have a very flexible schedule, which I
Nice.
love. It's pretty ideal. If they need extra help, if I'm available, then I'll come in. If not, then I'm like, I'll catch y'all next time. But it gives me a lot of time and freedom to also be creative with calligraphy and kind of build the business. So I do
Mm.
both.
Yeah, so it's interesting because it's almost flipped where the physical therapy is almost sort of like the part time, right? Because it seems like you are spending more hours with your calligraphy business, which is very cool.
Yeah, yeah. And it depends on the week. Usually around like holidays, they need more help and extra coverage
Mm.
because everyone wants to go on vacation and things like that. So it just depends on the time of year. Sometimes I'm busier with physical therapy. Sometimes I'm busier with the calligraphy.
Mm. So just
Yeah.
to take the listeners back, that first leap, right? Whoa. So
Ooh.
so what was like you were like stressed out, you're like I can't do this anymore. I'm assuming you were like mentally, physically, this is too much. I can't do it. But a lot of people get there, but they never
Hmm.
jump. They just
Yeah.
continue to do this job that's literally kind of eating them alive. So,
Yeah.
what gave you the courage to make that jump and to know, okay, this thing, this kind of side thing I'm doing, I know I can make some money from it?
Right. Yeah. That's a really good question. And I feel like before I did it myself, I would look at people who did it like, oh my
Hmm.
gosh, they're so brave. Like, how did you do it? I could never, not me. But I got to the point in my job where I just really was not happy. I was stressed out. I was having heart palpitations. I don't
Mm,
normally get sick. And I went to the doctor and one time to the ER at least 3 or 4 times that year. And normally I never really have to go unless it's a physical checkup. It was affecting my physical and mental health, the amount of stress that I was dealing with. I'm usually very involved with my community and my church, and I wasn't doing anything like
mm.
that during this time. I just wasn't happy at all. And I don't normally shop at Walmart, but I was at Walmart one day and I saw a sign, like literally a sign. It was just sitting in this basket where it had like other little random items. And the sign said, "Life is too short to not be doing what makes you happy." And I was
Mm.
like, Lord, if this ain't a sign, then I don't know what
This
is.
like out of all the places.
Okay. It was just sitting there. Like, I saw that and I was like, okay, I got to do something. I went home that evening and I started talking to my husband about it. He knew I wasn't happy. And what I did over the next couple of weeks was I made a pros and cons list. So
Mm,
I wrote out on a piece of paper what are the pros if I stay at this job and what are the cons if I leave.
mm,
And then I made another one, what are the pros if I leave this job? And then what are the cons if I leave? So I kind of went through each category
mm.
and the pros and cons of leaving outweighed the pros and cons of staying. And so that's what helped me to decide for sure that I was going to leave that job. I was smart in that I didn't just quit completely and not have any income coming in because I had never had a business before. And I was like, I'm not going to set myself up for failure. So I found another part-time physical therapy job where I still can treat patients, pretty much doing what I'm doing now, but on a much less stressful scale.
Mm.
And I really liked that environment. It kept my schedule very flexible, very open. And so I'm still there, and I was able to have more time to get involved in things that I love, start the calligraphy business. And it's just been a complete 180. Like, if you would have told me I would be where I am now 2 years ago, I would not believe it at all.
Wow, that's what I was going to ask you next. Like, how long has it been? So 2 years.
Yeah, it's been 2 years now, and my mind has just been blown.
Wow. So you make this decision. Were you doing anything before then where you were selling calligraphy or doing calligraphy for people, which you're like, okay, I'm making a little bit of money and I know I can scale it?
Mhm.
Or did you just start fresh? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have been practicing calligraphy for about 5 or 6 years now. When I launched Amanda Reid Designs, it I had been doing calligraphy for about 3 or 4 years, I guess. I'm trying to do the math in my head. So I have been doing calligraphy for a few years. Before calligraphy, when I was still an undergrad, I had this other little side hustle called Painted Feet, where I would
Mm,
paint shoes for people. So I was always like creative, like in
mm.
that way. But once I discovered calligraphy and lettering, then I just put the shoes to the side. I had been doing calligraphy for a few years, and I was getting people, friends asking, "Oh, can you make me this sign?" Or, "Oh, can you do this for my wedding?" Or, "Can you make something custom for me?" And so I was doing little things here and there for friends. And then people started asking me, like, I was posting my work on my Instagram page, and people would ask, "Oh, I need to learn calligraphy. I want you to teach me." And so that's where I got the idea to do workshops. So then when I decided to launch the business, I still didn't know what I was doing. But I kind of had a little bit, I knew that there was a need or a demand for what I was providing because people were already asking. So,
Hmm. So you're like, okay, I'm going to quit my job, but I have a backup. I found this other
yeah.
thing that I could do. So I'm bringing a little bit of money in. So what were some of your first steps? So you're like, okay, so I'm not bringing in as much money as I was. So as far as how you were going to set up the business, how you were going to promote the business, what were some of your first steps?
Yeah. First steps were, I don't know if you've ever seen like a newborn giraffe trying to walk, but that was
It's
me.
gonna like right exactly.
All over the place, stuff here and there, falling, trying to do stuff that I didn't need to be doing as a newbie entrepreneur. It was a hot mess. But I think that what's beautiful about that is that you learn by trial and error. Experience is a great teacher.
Mm, mm-hmm.
There's just some things that experience can teach you that no one else can. And so what I did was I was intentional about just putting my stuff out there. I was trying to do a little bit of everything because I still wasn't sure like what specific lane I wanted to be in.
Mm.
So I would dabble in some home decor, calligraphy, doing custom quotes for people, doing weddings, restaurant signs. I was just doing a little bit of everything. And over like the past 2 years, or it'll be 2 years in January, over the past 2 years or so, I've been starting to niche down. Okay, I don't really like doing weddings anymore. I don't really like doing these anymore.
Mm.
And so you just kind of learn what is your audience, what is your niche, what do you specialize in. Other things that I did was connecting with other calligraphers. And I didn't mention this before, but I'm also the
Mm.
founder of Calligraphers of Color, which is an online
Oh.
community that highlights and promotes diversity in the calligraphy space.
Mm.
Because when I started, I did not see other calligraphers that looked like me. I was not seeing Black calligraphers. was not finding Black instructors anywhere. And I was like, I know I'm not the only one.
Right. I mean, even when I
So,
saw you, I was like, "Oh my goodness," because it is very, very rare. Yeah,
yeah,
that I find calligraphers of color. So I think
yeah. So
even
we'll have
now
to talk about
it's
that.
hard. Yeah.
It's hard to find us. So I started this community last year called Calligraphers of Color just to find other people that look like me. And so finding other people that look like, well, not just look like you, but other calligraphers, connecting with others, and then putting your work out there, putting yourself out there, reaching out to other small businesses who might be looking for a way to, beautify their space with a custom quote, or restaurants that need their signs to be updated. So
Mm.
networking with other entrepreneurs was helpful as well.
That networking. Yes, you hear that, people.
Yeah.
And then
Yes,
the other
it
thing,
makes a difference.
and another thing I like that you said that I think people should hear, because I think sometimes people think like, oh, I'm going to take a calligraphy class in December, and then in January, I'm going to start to like become
Yes.
this like calligrapher and make all that money. Now, if you have this natural born talent and to market and do whatever, then maybe, right?
That's you.
But for most
Maybe.
people, they do build a skill, right? And it which takes time. The 10,000 hours or what have you. Some people are like, "Oh, really does it take that long?" But I'm like, when you're really passionate about something, those hours fly by because that's all you're doing. And then I
Yeah.
feel like, and then once you really get good, once you've gotten good, then you can really start expanding and really making money and really sharing your
Yeah.
talent. But I think sometimes people want to skip over that part, but it's key, you know?
It's so key. Yeah. And when I teach workshops, I get beginner calligraphers in my classes, and sometimes like some intermediate students who have just want to kind of refine their skills. But I guarantee every single class someone asks, how long does it take to get good? Or how long did you have to practice until you got to where you are? And I'm like, I'm still improving my skills 5 or 6 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that my lettering looks now, it does not, it didn't look the same a year ago, or
Right.
especially 5 years ago. It looked a hot mess and I thought I was doing something.
Right.
But you're right that people really expect to just jump over the practice stage. But
Mm-hmm.
if you want to be the best at something, you have to put in the work. It takes time to really refine your skills, to find your niche. And it's a frustrating transition because you know what you want to be doing
Mm-hmm.
and you see others doing it and you're wondering why you're not there or in that at that level where someone else is. But it takes time. It really takes time, and there's no substitute for that at all.
I 100% agree. I remember I took a calligraphy course online and then I took one in the DC area. And then when I started bullet journaling, I just for some reason got more into like hand lettering. And so I took some like
Hmm.
Skillshare courses. And so a lot of times when people see my bullet journal, they're like, oh my God, I want to do that too. And I'm like, girl, it's been like three
Let me tell
years and I'm
you.
still not that good. It's just because I'm doing it every week in a bullet journal, you know?
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
it's like just practice, practice, practice. But you're right, even years later, you're still refining those skills, but you're probably then at a good point where you can then start to sell that, whatever it
Hmm.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And even for me, like you mentioned that you've practiced a lot in your bullet journaling. After I would take those workshops when I was in grad school, I was using the skills that I learned in class when I was taking notes.
Right.
I was writing in calligraphy in my class notes. If I had like a grocery list or a to-do list, like it was all in calligraphy. And that's how I got in a lot of that practice. And some of these things that we're saying really will like transfer over to any skill. If someone's wanting to be a photographer or any other creative entrepreneur that requires a skill, like the more that you practice, that's what's going to elevate you.
For sure. So you begin to dabble in a little bit of this and that. And I knew you were going to say weddings because weddings are like, they're like photographers and calligraphers, I feel like weddings are
Yes.
gonna always be part of the journey, even if you say
Yeah.
like I am
Yes.
done. But as you were like dabbling with weddings and working with store owners, how did you figure out your pricing? Because since you were trying to make this somewhat of your main income, you were just starting out, but you still needed to eat. And I know
Yeah.
you're also married, so it's not like you were going to starve, but still you want to
Yeah.
make your own money. So how did that work? Like, how did you figure out that pricing?
I'm, I'm just shaking my head right now. I feel like pricing is a struggle for everybody. It is a struggle. And I feel like I would say this year is the year that I'm starting to really get a grasp of understanding my value, the value and worth, and the supply, the services that I provide.
Mm,
Because a lot of people will price based off of what they think their personal value or worth is, but
mm,
it's how much value are you adding to the client, and that's a great way to view it. Another lesson I had to learn was I am not my target audience,
mm, mm,
if that
mm.
makes sense. Like
Yeah.
I can't afford my services, and it's hard to separate that because it's, oh, I want it to be accessible to everyone. I want my family and friends to be able to afford everything, but I know that they're not going to pay X amount of dollars to
Mm,
come to a workshop or to get a custom jacket made or a custom quote done.
mm-hmm.
And some people will look at your prices and be like, "Now that is too much." But
It's
if you're
like,
viewing this in terms of if this is your livelihood, like if
yeah,
you're giving everybody a discount, then how are you going to pay the bills?
yes.
And it's tough sometimes having to look at your pricing in that way because it's like I don't know if I would be able to pay for something like that, but it's something that you do have to work through and see how much you want to make in a year. Some advice that I've received is to look at your if you want this to be a full-time job, look at
Mm-hmm.
your bills, write down your basic expenses and then
Mm-hmm.
add that up, see how much that costs. Are your current prices allowing you to just live? Are
Mm,
you able to get groceries, pay your rent or your mortgage, your car note, insurance, things like that? Is your current prices and the amount of money that you're bringing in able to cover those expenses? If
mm.
not, and your goal is to be full time, then it's time to bring your prices up or put out more services or something to get you to that level. Because if you're just keeping everything super affordable, it's just not going to work.
No, I love what you're saying because people on the podcast have heard me talk about numbers and finance
Mhm.
before. People, you can even go back to an old finance episode because you have to know your numbers. And what I
Yeah.
find a lot of times, especially for women, which is like super scary, is they don't know what their expenses are, right? So it's like, are you even covering costs like to make your product or to get
Yeah.
supplies? And
Hmm.
then it's knowing your numbers for, like you said, how you're living, what your mortgage or rent is, how much your utilities are, gas, all the things. And then really figure out, like, how much do I need to make a month to survive?
Yes.
And then go
Hmm.
backwards from there and figure out, like,
Yeah.
okay, can I sell a product that will bring me in X amount of dollars a month? and
Yes.
and and
Yes.
really
Yeah.
take a
That's
hard
so
look at
good.
that and try to and say yes I can do it, or ooh I need to relook at things, right? Like, and that's if
Hmm.
that's the goal. Like for some people it's a side
Yeah.
hustle where it's to save up money or just to go on a vacation, which is fine too, but you still need to know your numbers and know how much you want to bring in every year.
Yeah, exactly. I think a, I don't want to say it's a mistake because it is a learning experience, but a lot of times when people are starting off with initial pricing, that they're either losing money
Mm,
with their business or they're just breaking even. And when you're starting a side hustle or transitioning to full time, you need to be making a profit. I don't think people view it in that way. A profit is what you take home aside from the cost of time, materials, things like that. So,
yeah.
yeah.
It's the
Profit,
difference
not breaking
between a
even, not losing money.
right. It's between the difference between a hobby and a business, right?
Yes, yes. Most people still just have a hobby,
Right.
and that's the truth. It's not
Yeah.
a business if you're not making profit.
Now another question is
Hello.
right, right. Now another question I want to ask you is funny. I was talking to one of my business but besties because we both like struggle with this because as creators, we just want to create. You just want to make stuff. Who
Yeah,
wants to market, right? And
yeah.
so we were
Nobody.
talking about in 21 we're like, "Oh, we have to step up your marketing game." Have you been able to successfully market your business? What have you found that works and just doesn't work in the last 2 years of really trying to get your business out there?
So the biggest thing that I have learned in terms of marketing is people need to see the services that you provide multiple times before they decide that they actually invest or buy. I know some people they have a new service or a new offering, they're excited about it, and they post it on their social media and then never talk about it again. And it's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
nobody signed up for my little class, no one bought my product on Etsy. And it's if I'm just hearing about something for the first time, I need to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
why when you see these commercials, it's the same commercials over and over because they're just putting that into your mind that you need this service, you need this
Right.
service.
It's like, wait a
And so
minute.
the same,
Yeah.
yeah. And then out of nowhere, you're just craving a hamburger from McDonald's. It's like, I don't even eat McDonald's that much, but I want one. But yeah, I something that has helped me is I like to use Canva to create graphics, and it just has the basic information on there. You post it on your feed a couple times for people to see it, post it in your stories, talk about it, explain it. You're going to feel like you're oversharing too much, but the more you talk about it, the more people will know, and it'll drive them to invest in what you have to offer. Another thing that is really successful and helpful is to have whatever it is that you're offering on multiple platforms.
Mm.
So your target audience may mostly be on Instagram, but like right now I have over 10K followers, but everyone doesn't see every post.
Yeah.
And it's this algorithm that nobody understands. But if I only post it once, then majority of the people that follow me are not going to see what I'm
Yeah.
offering. And same thing in the stories. And if you have an email list, you can email out your services and you know that it's going directly in their inbox and they're going to see it unless they decide to just not open it.
Right.
So an email list is helpful. If you're on Facebook, you can, promote it on Facebook there if you're active on Facebook. Pinterest is also a great way to get things out there. I have a Pinterest account. I don't really promote that much on it, but
Mm.
it is a great place to, if you have a creative service or offering, you can have it there. If you have an Etsy store, then you just got to share what you have to offer on other platforms because just because you put something on Etsy doesn't mean that it's going to be found by the people
Right.
that you're wanting to find
You're
it.
like
So,
in a sea of thousands and thousands of people.
yes. Yeah. And I'm in a Facebook group and it's like a community of calligraphers. And someone said, I posted my shop on Etsy for some custom calligraphy cards. It's been a couple of weeks and no one has bought anything. And I wanted to ask so many questions. But I was like, okay, this is, might be someone that's new, which is okay. But are you promoting it? You can do some ads on Facebook or Instagram to get people to see it, to get a new audience. You can send out an email list. All the things that we just said can be helpful.
It's interesting. I was in this group the other day. It was like a little business group, and it was just people chatting about what works. And this lady was like, "Look, you guys, you have to pay to play." I was like, "Dang!" So for
Oh,
you, because some people are like, "No, no, no, you could get it. You could get business organically. Yeah, you might have to do ads here and there, but for the most part, you can grow your business organically." And then other people are like, no, if you want to truly scale, you see the McDonald's, the Anthropologies, the all the whatever of the world, they're known by many, but they're still paying for the Facebook ads, the Instagram ads, and so
Yes.
forth. So it's like, no, you have to get into the ad game. So what have
Hmm.
you found? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I would have to agree. I'm gonna have to agree. If your goal is to scale, then you're
Hmm.
gonna have to pay for ads.
Yeah.
You are. And if you're just starting out, it doesn't have to be a lot. You can do some ads, put down $5 and it'll, get you some new eyes on your work or your business. But there are some calligraphers that I know that are amazing calligraphers, and they are paying like hundreds of dollars a month to
Mm.
thousands of dollars a month on ads and marketing. And that's how people find them. That's how they're successful. And I'm just like, no, that's a little bit too much for me right now.
I
But
know. But they're making, I mean, because I've interviewed people who've made money from ads, even
Mhm.
podcasters I know who've like way excelled what I've been able to do. I've seen their ads, so I'm like, that is how they're getting millions of downloads, right? But it's
Yes,
kind of like,
yes,
ooh, man, that's an
yeah,
investment. But everybody's like, but
it's
you're
an
gonna get
investment.
that back tenfold. But it's like that
Yeah,
kind of mindset. Ooh, but okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna pay for this. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it's overwhelming. Like the ad game I don't want to say it's a whole nother beast, but it kind of is. I feel like I would just need to take a whole course on ads and understanding all of that. But just for people who are getting into the game, just to not be overwhelmed, like just start small. Kind of play around with $5, $10 here and there just to see the results of getting an ad out there and if it brings you new business and just kind of playing around with it. But you can still be successful if you are not paying for ads. But if you're wanting to scale your business and really take it to another level, at some point you're going to have to invest in that type of marketing.
Yeah, I know. I was listening to this again. I was like jumping in the conversation in there. If you want to go to that next level, pay to play.
Pay
You're gonna have to pay.
to
And I've
play.
done ads before, but I feel like it's like low level ads, right? Versus
Same,
like your
same.
friend, right? Where I know people where they're like, yes, you're spending thousands of dollars a year, but they're like, but I'm making $500,000 a year. And it's just like, oh, so it's really
Yeah.
just knowing your audience, knowing how to target those ads, right? And then once you know
Yeah.
what's working, then you can really scale up. But it is a interesting mental shift to get there,
It
right?
is.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And it goes back to what you said about the importance of knowing your numbers. We're not just saying to, like, as soon as you get a sale or you have $100 in the bank to go throw all of that at ads. But if you know your numbers, you know what it takes to run your business, set aside a little budget for ads and see how that helps you grow. Just budget it out a little bit and then see if that works for you.
Yeah. And then for you, are you a one woman show, or do you have a virtual assistant or somebody like a designer that kind of helps
Girl,
you out?
I wish. I need something like that. I wish I could have a team, like someone I could just tell, can you do the social media? Can you set up the workshops? You're in charge of tickets. I wish I had a team, girl. But no, it's just me. It's
Because,
me.
because even with your workshops, like it's funny, somebody was like, oh, Nache, you should do something on productivity. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like running that whole workshop, I'm like, do I really want to
Mhm.
run a workshop by myself? Because I feel like you need somebody that's like maybe watching the chat depending on what you're using. You're making sure you're giving everybody like their time, if it's
Mhm.
virtually or in person. So how are you able to successfully do the workshops by yourself?
Yeah. So I love workshops. Workshops are like my jam.
That's your jam.
Okay. They're so fun. I love hosting them, and I do the workshops 100% just me.
Wow.
When I was doing in-person classes, depending on how many attendees I would have, sometimes I would ask a friend to come help manage everything, like as an assistant, and I would, pay them an hourly fee for their help. But otherwise, I would do all the upfront, like organization, getting the supplies together, managing ticket sales, promoting everything, and then they would just come on the day of to help me set up and then show people their seats, and I would have snacks and stuff at the little table and they would help out with those things. But otherwise, I was doing it all. When you've done like several workshops, you get a rhythm and it's okay, I got this. And after you've done like your first one and you create your system, then it's easy to just flow. But for the virtual classes, virtual workshops, they're not that bad. I host all of mine on Zoom, and right now I've been using, sometimes I've played around with either using Zoom or not Zoom, Eventbrite, or
Oh,
posting
yeah.
ticket sales on my website. Eventbrite is the easiest for
Yeah, that
hosting
platform is just so
workshops.
seamless, right?
Yes, yes. It's like, why recreate the wheel? Why make it harder for myself? So I've been hosting or doing the ticket sales through Eventbrite, and that just makes it easier. Host them on Zoom, and then people just come into the room, and we have a little meet and greet, and I kind of lay down the rules for the meeting. Make sure your mics are on mute so we don't hear anything in the
Right,
background, and
crunching,
make
dogs
sure you can see
barking.
me clearly. Yes. We have, uninvited guests in the room. You'll be surprised at things that you see. But yeah, so I mean, if people have questions, then they can just type in the chat box and then I'll get to them afterwards. Or I like my classes to be really laid back and interactive.
Mm.
So if someone has a question throughout, then they can unmute, ask their question, and then I'll address it. Because if one person is thinking about it, then someone else probably is too. So then I just address it with everyone. But it hasn't been too bad. Pretty much if you're wanting to host like a workshop, you pick a date and time, set up your Eventbrite and Zoom link, put it out there, promote, and then when it comes time to host, you just have fun with it.
Yeah. No, it seems even just looking at your stories and your posts, I'm like, it seems like it would be a fun workshop to be a part of.
They're fun.
Yeah. And then do you have, because it was interesting, recently took a bookbinding virtual workshop, which was nice because I'm so used to doing in person, but during a pandemic, it's okay. I got to
Yes.
get my
Yeah.
crafty fix online now. And
Mm-hmm.
Skillshare, courses are great, but there is something magical about having other women that you don't know and you're kind of seeing each other and then you're seeing your
Yeah.
products. It's just, it could be just the extrovert in me too, but I think it even works for
Mm-hmm.
introverts because it's just nice seeing other people and then talking
Yeah.
about something you're learning or that you love to
Yeah.
do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's what I love about workshops. For me, and this is the difference between just watching how to do a skill on YouTube or Skillshare or even taking like a course online. Like those platforms are wonderful, but
Mm-hmm.
like you said, there's something different about like a live workshop, whether it's virtual as it is now or in person. But for me, workshops are about creating an experience. You're bringing everyone together. It's creating community. We're all working together to learn this new skill, or just complete this project. And it allows you to feel connected to other people who really enjoy the same passion as you. I love workshops. I do my best in the classes to make it somewhat resemble as if it were in person
Right.
by trying to bring in some of those elements as much as you can virtually. But what I love about the virtual workshops now is that it has allowed me to expand my classes to people who couldn't attend because they lived in other
Right.
places.
Right.
So, I mean, I've had people from all over the country and all over the world join in on my workshops over this pandemic. And it's been really cool to meet new people that way.
That is very cool because I was going to ask you, as we, wrap up here is, with the pandemic, A lot of even my last guest talked about having to move and just the things that impacted her business, not being able to find like pumps for her beauty products. And it was
Hmm.
just insane. So for you, you were luckily able to take your classes that you were doing, of course, in person online. Did
Hmm.
anything else change for you? Because I know you also do the custom jackets, right? But did you have to
Yeah.
make any other shifts in your business, or were you still getting those orders and still being able to do things even though the country was in this weird limbo?
An interesting question. This year has been something else. And it's weird because I would have expected, unfortunately, like many people, like business to shut down.
Hmm.
But 2020 has thrown me for a loop. Like my business has blossomed.
That's a great
Needless to
thing.
say,
I mean, in all this
it
like
has,
bad
yeah,
sadness, it's good to hear these good stories where a business like yours is
yes,
actually like
it has.
growing.
Yes, it has grown. So I was hosting in-person workshops, but over this pandemic, I probably have taught at least, so in comparison, last year I taught about 8 to 10 workshops.
Mm.
This summer alone, over the pandemic, I've taught at least 15 to 20 virtual
Whoa.
workshops. Yes, yes. And I would say, so I stopped doing like wedding signage, wedding calligraphy, because I've just learned that's not really my lane
Mhm.
and not really a space that I really want to provide services for. But I've been able to expand to working with like brands and businesses, hosting workshops with corporate client. It's just like my mind has just been blown this year.
Wow.
And then with everything that has happened with like the Black Lives Matter
Oh
movement,
yeah.
people were looking to support more Black businesses.
Mm.
And because I was the founder of Calligraphers of Color, a lot of people flocked to that page trying to just celebrate diversity. And it's funny because I thought it was something that happened this year, but it had been a whole, and it had been here for a whole year. Like in March, before the pandemic and before the whole movement, we had about 500 followers. Now there's over 13,000 people following that page. And
Wow.
it's like, well, welcome
That's
everyone.
beautiful, right? It's like, hello.
Yeah. Yeah, like welcome. We've been here, but yes, come join.
Right.
So those are ways that my business has changed over the year. I'm looking at, because it has grown so much, I'm trying to find ways to make it more accessible for people. Hosting these workshops is a great way to have a lot of people join in, but also wanting to do some like pre-recorded videos and things like that. So it's been an adventure.
I love it. And I'm glad you said pre-recorded videos too, because it's a weird thing because the online experience is great because of course you could talk to the students, but there's only one of you, right? So you can only do so many a month. You only have so much capacity. And so it's nice that
Exactly.
you're thinking about also just doing one for those people, because there are like hardcore introverts where they're like, I don't even want to chat with you, even though I am
Yes.
muted. I don't want to see you.
Okay,
Let me
camera
hit
off.
play. So it's
Do this
good.
on my own time. Right.
So that's nice that you're doing that for them too. And I love that your business too is impacted in such a positive way by like the social justice movement. Even when I was talking, I interviewed Heidi from Desert to District. It was funny because she said for years she was doing illustrations of women of color lawyers, right? And so when the
Yeah.
whole movement came about, people were like, "Oh, did you just start doing it?" It's just like, no, no, no. I've been doing this
No.
for
I've
years.
been here.
But I think it was just so great because a community like yours or a business like hers just before wasn't getting as much notice, and but they are so important because I feel like in all these creative spaces it is important that we see people of color. And as
Yeah.
somebody like as a podcaster, like most of the listeners know, I'm like super picky about who I bring on here. Like I have to love their products. Your brand has
Yeah.
to look a certain way. And in some of the industries, I'm always trying to make sure like the people I'm interviewing are very diverse. Like I have someone of Asian descent, someone who's Black, someone who's white, like someone who's
Mhm.
Hispanic. But in some of those industries, when I tell you I have to look a long, long time to find people that are in those niches, be it watercolor or calligraphy or whatever it is. So to me, I was just really excited to discover more of those people because they were now on more lists. And when I searched for
Yes.
them, they came up. They weren't in this like black hole,
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And it's hard because it's even as in whatever space you're in, it like you said, it's hard to find people that look like us in a variety of diverse spaces. But I could be looking for like a realtor, but maybe you want to work with a Black realtor. But when people are marketing or advertising or promoting their services, like I don't promote my brand as the Black calligrapher. I'm
right? So
a
you,
calligrapher that is Black.
right.
And so like when people are looking for to support like Black owned businesses, people type in Black calligrapher on Google, but I may not have that on my website because I'm like, I'm not trying. So it's tough, like trying to find like industry leaders in a diverse spaces that look like you or look like us without, penciling them out. Like, you know what I mean?
No, I
So,
get it because like let's say if before the whole Black Lives Matter movement, because I'm like Google nerd. Like I can search. I am a stalker. I can search some stuff. I go on Instagram. I search people. I look at the followers of people who I'm following. But you're right. Like if I
mhm.
just look for calligrapher, I would have to, especially before BLM, I would have to go through maybe 200, just finding them
Yes.
randomly before I would start to find like women of color calligraphers that are mentioned in
Yes.
different spaces, like Facebook spaces
Yeah.
and things like that. So I think people, that's what they don't get. It's not that we're not out there. It's just hard to
Hmm.
find because those businesses aren't highlighted like some of the other
Yeah.
businesses. Yeah.
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 Mm.
I
Wow.
agree. Mm.
Okay. So I have been chewing your head off. So before I get to the wrap up question, I always ask people, what would you say to that person? 2020 has been a year. They were where you were 2 years ago. They're like, oh my goodness, it's the pandemic. My job is killing me. I don't really want to be here. A lot of people have had these kind of life altering experiences where they're moving cities, selling their homes, and they're just like,
Yeah.
it's time to do something different. And they're like, okay, I think it's ready. I'm ready to make that jump. What do you have to tell me, Amanda? Any tips?
Oh, oh my gosh. Ooh.
For
So
those
what do I
folks who
have
are
to
like, oh my goodness, I need 2021 to be the year I do the thing.
Yeah. So I would say first get your things together.
Mm.
I think that it's easy to just want to leap, just to leap, because you're ready for something new, but you have no equipment to leap with. If I were to jump, if I'm on the 2020 plane and I'm ready to jump off, you know, I am not jumping without a parachute.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know where you're wanting to land and have the right equipment. So, right now it is December 1st. Get your things in order to be ready to launch something for the upcoming year. Network with other people who are where you want to be
Mm.
and look and see what paths did they take. If you have a product or a service that you're wanting to offer, start putting your work out there for people to see if it's even something that's in demand, if it's needed. Because there's nothing like trying to sell something that nobody wants.
Right. You get crickets.
Yes, cricket. So make sure. And another thing that I'll say, and this is just a moment of honesty, a lot of people get frustrated when they put out their service or a product and they wonder why no one is buying. You have to evaluate, is what I'm offering high quality?
Mm.
Because I look at work of other calligraphers and sometimes you may be new at what you're doing and it just may not be like up to par. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it goes back to what we were sharing earlier about like quality and practice. Make sure whatever you're doing is done well. Make sure you're not settling with the things that you have to provide or the things that you have to offer. Work out all the little kinks so that whenever it comes time to sell or launch, you've thought of everything. So I always think that when it's time to do something new, do it with a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you don't know what's gonna happen.
Well said. I love it. I love it. Okay, so rapid fire questions. How do you stay organized? Any tools, software, or techniques you would recommend?
Ooh, that's tough. I feel like sometimes I'm all over the place because I still work as a physical therapist and managing Calligraphers of Color and Amanda Reid Designs. But I'll say a tool that I really like to use is HoneyBook.
Mm,
It's like a what's the word for it? It's a platform where it's kind of like an all-in-one. So you can do
yeah.
invoicing, you can schedule appointments. If you get a new inquiry on your website, it puts it all in that one space. It has like budgeting tools. Just everything is within that platform. I like to use that to
Mm-hmm.
kind of keep me a little bit sane. Other thing is a website. I like having my website because I tell people this all the time. If something were to happen to social media or Instagram and it gets shut down, how are people going to find you and what you have to offer?
Right.
So, I mean, at least an email and a website, if you can get that up by 2021, goals. That's your
Because
next
it takes
project.
one algorithm to totally
Yes,
mess you up.
to mess you up. So you need somewhere else to refer people to show them that you got your stuff together.
Love it. And then, do you have a hobby?
Calligraphy is my hobby. It's my business and my hobby.
No.
Other than calligraphy, I love to sing. I grew up singing in the church, and it's just like my thing. I love to sing and make music. I love to dance
Mm,
and just anything crafty or creative.
mm, love it. And then, last but not least, where can the listeners find you?
Yeah, you can find me at my website, www.amandareiddesigns.com. That's
Mm.
REID.com. My Instagram is Amanda Reid Designs. And then also, if you're interested in finding our Calligraphers of Color community, we're also on Instagram at Calligraphers of Color.
Perfect. Well, Amanda, this has been great. Thank you for letting me ask all the questions. I really appreciate it.
Yes, it was so great chatting with you. This is great.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Amanda. Know that I actually attended one of her workshops, which was really great. It was great, number one, just to experience how she runs a workshop. It was very therapeutic. She does this like self care calligraphy room workshop. She plays music and has these practice sheets, and she gives you this beautiful guide to go along with the workshop. It was just very professional and very well done. So, if you're interested in calligraphy or lettering, I definitely recommend that you take one of her workshops in 2021, and you don't have to be this expert at calligraphy or lettering in order to do so. And if you happen to have a business, definitely pay attention to just to how she organizes it and keeps the room flowing. It was really, really nice. So kudos to you, Amanda. Really enjoyed the workshop. And also, really think through some of the other things that she mentioned in the episode if you do have a business, as far as like pricing and marketing. And as we get into 2021, really make sure that you have a good plan together. All right, that's all I've got, folks. The show notes for this page is over at nachesnow.com/122. Next week's episode is going to be epic because Monique and I just get down and dirty, right? Like what we said we were going to do last year, what and this time last year, we're like, 2020 is going to be the bomb. We're going to do all this stuff. And we're going to tell you what actually got done, just some of our feelings and what we ended up doing, just during the pandemic or not doing, and then what we plan to do for 21. We're really talking to you guys about, or going through our process as we're talking to you guys on that next episode. So I hope you guys really enjoy it and it helps you with your planning for 2021. So be sure to make sure that you subscribe wherever you're listening so you get a notification when that hits the streets. All right, please rate the podcast 5 stars. If you're on YouTube, please give it a thumbs up. And of course, just make sure that you subscribe wherever you're listening. And I appreciate you making this one of your podcasts of choice. It really means a lot to me. All right, you guys, I will chat with you guys next week for the last episode of the year. All right, have a beautiful week. Take care.